Thank you for being here. Folks in the audience, thank you so much for showing up. And everyone who is joining us electronically, it's great to have you participating in our democracy. This is the regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Waverly, Iowa. We are Monday, January 28th, 2024. At City Hall, it is now 7 o'clock. This meeting is called to order. Carla, would you call the roll?
Yes. Birgen.
Here I am.
Drenkow.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Kangas.
Present.
Myers.
Here.
Rathe.
Here.
Wolff. Here.
Thank you. Would you join me in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I would accept a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I would move to approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Councilman Kangas.
Second.
There is a second. Brian, thank you. Any discussion? I hear none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? That was unanimous. Thank you. The minutes have been put in front of you, and they're also available to anyone online. These are the minutes from the last meeting, December 18th, 2023. That was a regular meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move approval of the December 18, 2023 regular meeting minutes.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. That was Ann.
Yep.
All right, any discussion on the minutes? I hear none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? That passed unanimously. Councilperson Meyers, would you introduce our guest, please?
I'd be happy to. Our guest council member for January is Garrett Akins. He is with Edward Jones downtown in Waverly. I believe you've been in town 4-ish years,
4.5, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
and please give us a little bit more background on it.
Yeah, so thank you for having me. My name is Garrett Akins. As Julie said, I run the Edward Jones office downtown, across from the Cobblestone Inn. I'm originally from the small town of Baxter, Iowa. I lived in various places for 13 years and moved to Waverly about 4.5 years ago. I'm a citizen of Ward 1, so Mr. Birgen, I'm your guy. Yeah, so that's a little bit about me. I'm learning to love Wartburg College, even though I'm a co-college grad. So, but Waverly's been very kind to us, very, very great place to be. So.
Excellent. There are several of us who went to other
Yes.
Lutheran colleges who learned to love Wartburg as well.
That's true.
Welcome. It's great to have you. You'll have a chance to make comments at the end of the meeting.
Thank you.
We have agenda in front of us, but is there anyone from the public who would like to make comments on items not on the agenda? I see no one rising, so we'll move on to item H. This is the consent calendar. The consent calendar, council, is in front of you and has been posted on the internet for several days. Can I have a motion to approve?
I'll move approval of the consent calendar as written.
Second?
Thank you. Is there any discussion on the items in the consent calendar? You appear ready to vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That passed unanimously. Let's turn to Resolution 2401, a resolution of support and financial commitment for the Main Street program of Waverly, Iowa. Is there a motion to bring this forward to the table?
I'll move approval of Resolution 24-01, a resolution of support and financial commitment for the Main Street program in Waverly, Iowa.
Thank you, Councilman Meyers. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Thank you, Councilman Birgen. Is there any discussion?
Well, my question, it's support and financial, but there isn't a specified financial amount in there, is there?
That's correct. You'll determine that at budget time.
The financial commitment that the state expects us from this, program expects is that we
If I'm
just
not wrong,
contribute
Mr.
something.
Tolliver, I don't think there even has to be a financial commitment. I think even in kind can be enough support for Main Street and all that.
Mr. Tolliver?
Yeah.
You would, sir.
Good evening, council, and Happy New Year. Yes, Mr. Bronner is correct. The financial commitment is left up to the city, whether that's in kind or financial. Waverly's always had a tradition of financially supporting the Main Street program, so there's no scale or anything like that on which the financial commitment is made.
Okay, I was just a little leery that it was open-ended or how it was,
And it is.
so, okay.
So we'll talk more in detail about the funding, the hotel motel tax, et cetera, on the 20th?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
But
I just had one question. It looked like, I know that you have dual roles at the chamber with the Main Street program plus the chamber, and it looked like a town our size is supposed to have someone who is 40 hours a week doing Main Street program. And so I
Correct.
wondered, is that a
Yeah.
problem where the overall organization is concerned?
Great question. And so in the eyes of IEDA and the Main Street Iowa program, that would be correct if I was a staff of one. Since we have multiple people on our staff that help carry the load of the Main Street responsibilities, that's not an issue.
Oh, okay.
Any other discussion? Any other discussion? I hear none, you appear ready to vote. All those in favor of resolution 24.01, please say aye.
Isn't this a roll call vote?
Roll call vote.
Sir.
Oh, it is, isn't it? Sorry. Be graceful, it's my first time. Carla,
Forgive it.
can we have a roll call vote, please?
Absolutely. Bergen.
Yes.
Drenkow.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
Meyers.
Yes.
Rathe.
Yes.
Wolff.
Yes.
That was unanimous, thank you very much. Let's move on to item 2. This is the first reading of ordinance 1138, an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances of Waverly, Iowa by repealing Chapter 33 on Economic Development Commission. Is there a motion to bring this to the floor?
I will move approval of the first reading of ordinance 1138, an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances of Waverly, Iowa by repealing Chapter 33, Economic Development Commission.
Thank you, Councilman Birgen. Is there a second?
Second.
There is a second. Thank you. Any discussion?
I'd be interested, James, to hear your ideas about what you want to do instead of this and how to involve, local business leaders and other folks in economic development.
Absolutely. If you look at the memo that I sent in, 2008 is when Economic Development Commission was started. And at the time, I think the city was looking for some direction, some guidance on how to move forward, what it should be doing. And I think it was very successful. And in the past number of years, we aren't growing like someone in the metro would be or someone like that. So we don't have a lot of corporations or businesses coming in where we have development agreements and things we need guidance on. And so it's really thinned out to where we aren't meeting there as much. We are not having meetings at all, or we were lucky to have a quorum. And even the last meeting I attended, December, it was the first one since July or September. So the commission itself has kind of, in my opinion, gone past where we need it to be. So in talking to Connie and looking at, the opportunity with Bill retiring, which is all unfortunate, does give us an opportunity to look at a different scope of how we do this. Part of the issue you look at with the commission itself is it is also a public meeting. And there are developers and so on that do not want to come talk in a public meeting about their plans, their wishes, what they'd like to have or not have. And while we are a very friendly community, we do like to talk about things, and sometimes things we shouldn't talk about. Whether it's businesses coming to town, or we like to go to Facebook court and handle things out there. There have been instances where some businesses really didn't like that, and talk ceased when we were starting to get to a point where we'd like to go forward. So in order to kind of move forward with a much smaller, more nimble group, Connie and I will start this off with Bill's guidance while he's still with the city to look at meeting with individual developers or different subsets of the community we've not looked at before, or individuals that we've not included for whatever reason in various discussions about this. So our goal is to look at a blanket position of the city and where are we at in needs of a bunch of different areas, not just certain segments or a commission that's been selected to have those comments. So I've never been a fan of the term grassroots effort, but it's almost that kind of a way of doing economic development. We're gonna see this as more of a customized economic development where we will pull from resources within the community that we will have met with prior, with them having the knowledge at some point, we need to pull you in for certain things depending on what comes up. And in the other segments, we'll have a better idea of what's happening, whether it be education, healthcare, the financial industry, what are the markets doing, all these things that help us understand better what does the community need as a whole. And we can do that faster with a few people versus trying to schedule a commission of 8, 10, 15, or a group of 50 as we've done in prior strategic planning. So that is kind of the ultimate goal, I can speak. So we're working through our subsections we want to get a hold of. It is a sizable undertaking to try and meet with a number of different organizations, different groups, whether it's civic organizations, whether it's, again, different segments of the community we have not really talked to a lot in the past, to get a sense of what everyone is needing, not just a hand-selected group that we have relied on. And so that is kind of the gist of what we're going to try to do. I'm more than happy to try and answer any questions on what it looks like, but that's our reasoning to move past the current structure.
Yeah, I was kind of on the same point. It's like, how much structure do we still kind of have in place if we're lopping this off?
Right.
Without, usually it's a repeal and replace type of, with boards or with our code. And so this one is just kind of like repeal. And so it's, where are we going and making sure that we still, because the commission allowed us to have some of that contact with some of the bigger organizations in town, the school district, the Wartburg, et cetera. But also then it had kind of small tentacles out within the business community too. But, and so I think Wartburg, certainly the school, are big ones that we have to keep kind of constantly in touch base with as far as that. But as long as we're working on that, and we've still got Bill for a little bit yet to help kind of shape that. We've talked about not having or redoing the economic development director position as well as the combined position that Bill has since he's leaving. So that is work in progress.
And those are things we'll continue to do. We'll meet with some of the larger players around here multiple times a year. Others, it may be okay to meet just once a year and get a feel of where it is. But if you look back at, at least since I've been here, to be 8 years now this month, over and over, what is the role of the commission? We've heard that every single meeting, it felt like, for a while, or every single year, somebody different would ask that. There was a need and a push to want to make those decisions, but they can't because it's using tax dollars or public dollars. And that's what all of you were elected to do for the group. So it really became an advisory commission that wanted to be more. And unless you're putting in what we would consider like a development corp, which is private money making those decisions, it really wasn't going to blend. You don't, it's not your own funds. You as a council have to determine any use of public funds. So there really wasn't a place to have that broad and in-depth discussion and then an outcome that they could have an impact on. And I think that was one, frustrating. Two, we really didn't have things we could bring forward to really, utilize that time for these members. And so I think there was a bit of frustration just because of the way it was set up. In fact, we were government, not a private company, that made it more difficult. And so our goal is to try and bridge that by using a significant number of people in the community for each of these items as needed, but also bring it to you when it's ready to come public, not 5 months before or a year before. Or if you look at the recent press release you just saw from the GMT building that was sold, nobody knew anything about it. That's how it should have been always with other things. But instead, it gets out in the community. And again, people are curious and want to talk. Sometimes that's not a good thing. If it's not ready to be public, it shouldn't be public. And that was a perfect example of what we're going to try and do is that kind of a release. Something wonderful's happened. You now have a reason to know about it, or we're going to need some incentives of some sort from the community. Then it will come public, but not before when all the speculation gets to be rampant and all of a sudden 9 businesses are coming when absolutely 0 are coming. And that was the frustration that some vendors had seen, and it just wasn't a good representation of how we want to do business going forward.
Yeah, I think it's important to figure out a way to sort of keep us apprised of what's happening with strategic planning for the city with regard to economic development without talking out of turn, right? And without unknowingly sabotaging business prospects. But I think, you think about the land use plan, and we've talked about which direction are we growing, and I think so to have some more specifics about what would we like to see in what part of town, for instance, without necessarily us knowing the nitty-gritty if it's not appropriate. right?
Absolutely.
But I agree. I mean, I sat on the Economic Development Commission before I ran for council, and I couldn't figure out, it was interesting, right? And it's a bit of a think tank, but I couldn't figure out what they did, really, because it was more of a discussion, and the players were there,
Right.
but not actively engaged in, doing economic development.
I
So I think
attended the,
revision is helpful. It's
I
good.
attended the last meeting, and that was a couple of weeks ago. and The commission hadn't met since July, and there was no new business and no old business on the agenda.
Yeah.
Making for a strikingly short meeting, I'll give you that, but there was a lot of struggle of,
Yeah.
what are we here
Yeah.
for? So,
Thank you.
So would it be fair to say, kind of for public clarification, that this is no reflection on the performance of the
Right.
Economic Development
Absolutely
Commission
not, yeah.
members?
Right, right. Or
Or the
staff.
commission itself, or staff? And that by no means are we looking at, we're not doing economic development anymore. It's more, we want to be more effective at our economic development and use our resources better.
We want to be more focused in a certain area we're dealing with instead of trying to do something for everything. And that's what we're not able to do with the way it's set up. And in all seriousness, COVID changed the way the landscape looks now anyway. Different businesses aren't growing or building or doing a lot of things. There is a need for faster results, faster impact. We can't do that with a public setting that has to be called and have a commission meeting, and it just doesn't work. And so as things have progressed and gotten faster and more nimble, we need to respond as well. And whether this works or not, if we go back to a commission in so many years, we certainly could. We just want to do a 180-degree turn, go something drastically different to try and bring in a little different product for us, so maybe it's quicker, faster, and that's our goal.
I understand this, and I fully support it. I think that the current structure of the Economic Development Commission has probably outlived its usefulness and its purpose, and it's a good time to take a look at doing something different. I would hope, and I assume that we'll have other discussions on this going forward.
Sure.
I would hope that some kind of a citizens organization, a community group, certainly much smaller than the 13 or 17 or however many people we had on the Economic Development Commission, some kind of a group that maybe participated more as an advisory or a planning group, Economic Planning Commission or something, not necessarily dealing with specific industries coming to town, but just maybe meeting every so often, what is it that we're lacking? What kind of things do we need to move forward? What are some ideas we can have? So that we have some citizen input into that also, and not just staff input.
It sounds like a commission.
Yeah. That's why I think we need to have some discussion on this, because I think that probably a good charge for what they're supposed to be doing might be helpful, because I'm a little concerned about completely eliminating any citizen advisory into economic development. Because without having some kind of citizen input, all we have is what the staff deems is necessary for economic development. And I'm not saying this is on a specific case-by-case thing. I'm talking more about a 20,000-foot view of what we want to do here in the city. Do we want to have more large, heavy industry? Do we want to support more small industry? What are the things we need to do? Do we need to focus on housing? Do we need to focus on leisure services? What is the focus we should have to attract new people to Waverly, new businesses and new economic things to Waverly? Not necessarily what industries, specific industry are we going to try to recruit here, but just what things do we want to have here in Waverly, and what do we want to take a look at doing? And I think that can be done without necessarily having talking about any competences or violating any competences what we have, because it's really more of a planning platform than it would be a commission.
Well, we did that. City Council did strategic planning with citizen input. Then we
Yeah.
did economic development strategic planning, and it was practically identical. And so I
Yeah.
think, as a city council, and we did have citizen input for that, and I think we came up with some really good ideas and had good discussion. And so, and I think it sounds like city staff does get citizen input, right, about economic development and businesses coming to town from developers, et cetera, but it's not in a commission. I guess that's the
Correct.
question. Does it need to be a commission to do that?
Who determines who it is? You see
Right,
where we are
right.
from individuals that are just, they're picked by the mayor and approved by you, with what background? And that's where the commission was. That's what I started with, is that's our goal, is to meet with segments that we haven't talked to, that we don't talk to, people that don't necessarily agree with what we're doing. That's our goal, is to get a blanket, almost a SWOT analysis of the city, not bringing together 50 people who may not be comfortable talking in front of each other, which we've seen in other strategic plans. Our goal is to have a comfortable environment where they can truly speak their mind. Because if everyone just comes in, we all agree, we're probably not getting anything done. That's kind of what the last strategic plan almost was. There was no dissension, which told me it wasn't really as quality as I would have wanted it to be. There should be some. And that's what our goal is, to find all segments of the community, not just the ones that we pick, that we want to come and join in. It should be everybody. And so, again, grassroots, I'll say it again, that's what we're looking for, is individuals in areas that we aren't commonly using for this. So it will be citizen input driving this. And once we're done with that analysis, which will be broad, we'll bring back a report to you exactly what they said, and use the council to determine based on that.
That's the key in my,
Industry, et cetera, because a lot of things you're talking about, Rod, I don't disagree at all, but that's a council vision. Should we have more industry or not?
right.
We'll bring you the opinions of all the people in that industry to see, is it saturated, will it work? So it is gonna be a multi-step process, we're just gonna do the groundwork in a little smaller setting, so hopefully people are more comfortable truly expressing their opinions, instead of being maybe intimidated in front of an entire council, a commission, a public meeting. We're hoping to get better input from those same citizens.
He left already, but it's also something where we can lean on the chamber a little bit too, is they're not necessarily everybody, they could kind of be seen as a self-selected small group, but at least that's part of the role of the chamber, is working with the businesses and improving the business climate within town, so.
Sure.
Well, I think we need to delineate, right? What's the chamber's role? What's the Main Street role? What is city staff role? And I think that's been nebulous in the past, and so I think this revision, and if we have a more active economic development, group here at the city, I think that will make the delineation more clear.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's,
The key that you said, as far as I'm concerned, James, is when you said to report back to the council on what you found. And that would be acceptable to me, if the staff is going to be doing these functions, that they report back to somebody. Whether it be a group that we call economic development, or whether it be to the council. At some point, a city non-staff group has got to take the information that you're providing and say, yes, we agree with this, or no, we don't agree with it, or something like that. So that, to me, is the key. As long as we're doing that, I have no problem.
We want to simplify it and go straight to the top, so the people making the decisions, instead of going through multiple groups to hopefully get the same message to the people making the decisions.
Yeah.
We don't want another layer in the way. We want to bring you what we found, have you react, give us direction, and go forward.
Yeah.
More focused, more accurate, a little more nimble. And that's the whole point of this, is to get quicker, better, faster. So that's our goal.
I'm good with it.
Appreciate that.
I would say I appreciate the idea that we're trying to hear from voices we haven't heard from before, that before we had kind of this commission of, however many people, and those were the voices that we were hearing. And I would like to kind of expand beyond the usual voices and the usual suspects that we're hearing from. It sounds like that's your goal, and I want to encourage you to do that. I do want to make sure that we make sure to push beyond just who we know, that we're making sure to kind of find people that may not be on our radar who are still part of that economic development. So, the opportunities in the city, we need to make sure that we're hearing from all those voices and all that opportunity for growth.
There's a lot of people on Connie's list, I don't even know who they are. I don't recognize the name, we are gonna reach out to areas we have not talked to at all, and hopefully they'll be willing to provide us some input. So
Well,
it's not a standard group that we all know and the names you've heard of. These are a lot of individuals I've never met, and that's what we're gonna try and reach out to.
Yeah, last week I spoke at the project lead class, and I did not know most of the people there, and they all introduced themselves and what they did, and, involved in some of the major businesses in town, and many of them don't live in Waverly. So they might live in Reedland, Tripola, et cetera, and so I think, even though they aren't residents of Waverly, they're very important in the economic engine of Waverly. And so we want to make sure we're also talking to them.
Absolutely.
You know,
What would
so-
it take for them to become residents of Waverly?
Right,
That's
right.
part of the goal of what we're
Yeah.
trying to accomplish.
Okay.
Thank you for that discussion. Is there any more? Are you ready to vote? Any more discussion? Carla, would you call the vote?
Yes, sir. Drenkow.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Rathe.
Yes.
Wolff.
Yes.
Birgen.
Yes.
That was unanimous. Thank you very much. We're at Resolution 2402, a resolution approving a supplemental agreement number 1 to McClure Engineering Company's Task Order number 9 to the on-call agreement for engineering services for the construction of Taxiway Connector Project. Can I have a motion to bring this up?
I'll move the approval of Resolution 24-02, approving a supplemental agreement, number 1, to McClure Engineering Company's Task Order number 9, to the on-call agreement for engineering services for the construction taxiway connector project and compensation for extended construction administration and observation services not to exceed $7,800.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion?
So I'm just a little bit confused. Is this, it looks like is this a charge for 8 days of additional construction? For the engineering supervision of this?
Mr. Jerry, would you address us?
Sure. So the contractor went over the allowable amount of time, and so we had additional on-site administration services performed by McClure Engineering. They feel it's appropriate to increase their contract amount, but not to exceed an additional $7,800. So it's not meant to be an exact accounting. That will come in the billing. The project is not technically done. There is some work that will take place in the spring. So depending on how much additional time, we're only billed for when they're actually there. Okay. But it is appropriate when, this is one of the reasons for liquidated damages on the contractor is if for their scheduling takes longer than is allowed by contract, the city may incur additional construction observation services, and the liquidated damages are expected to cover those expenses.
What caused the delay?
So there were some scheduling issues on the contractor. I know that the contractor that was doing the paving, they had anticipated that they would have 4 days of paving, and they ended up having quite a bit more than that. So this one was also set up on a calendar day, so they had a completion date. And so kind of regardless of the weather, they know they have to go in and complete it in a timely manner. The weather was favorable, but due to some of their own scheduling, it ended up taking a little bit longer, and they understand what the consequences are, and they don't like it, but they were agreeable to the 8 additional days. Yep.
Thanks.
So I had a question on the fourth whereas, and maybe it's what you just explained, but I'm still confused. The negotiations between the parties, contractor days counted toward the project, an agreement was reached at 8 calendar days equating to $12,000, which will be removed from the construction contract at the end of the project? What does that mean?
Correct. It's a deduct from the final amount. So within here, you'll see the pay application number, is it number? So in the pay applications, it actually shows up as a withholding. And so that follows through to the very end.
So if they don't get done on time, they get docked a certain amount per day. Is that?
So am I understanding correctly that, so we're paying McClure $12,000 more.
No.
Oh,
7,800.
7,800 more, yep, so, thank you. But then the contractor ends up basically covering that extra cost because of their consequences?
Through a deduct in
Okay,
the
that's what I wanted to clarify.
Right. Their total contract amount is reduced based on the liquidated damages.
Okay.
And so the way the liquidated damages work is the engineering firm, in this case is McClure Engineering, is doing the construction administration observation. So they're tracking how long it's taken the contractor. And sometimes there's legitimate time extensions. Other times, in this situation, they were actually quite a bit more than 8 days. And McClure had withheld substantially more. But it's just being held while additional information is being gathered. And so the contractor contested the total number of days, and they had good explanation as to why they felt that it ought to be reduced. And so McClure Engineering takes a look at that, and the city then also is involved too. And so it ended up being reduced down to the 8 days. And like I said, contractors don't like it, but the contractors, like, we're agreeable to that. We understand we have some, have some fault in this.
Okay, thank you.
Any more discussion? Council, we're at Resolution 2402. Carla, would you call the roll?
Yes, Your Honor. Jones?
Yes.
Kangas?
Yes.
Meyers?
Yes.
Rathe?
Yes.
Wolff?
Yes.
Birgen?
Yes.
Drenkow?
Yes.
That was unanimous. Thank you very much. Let's move on to item number 4, Resolution 2403. This is a resolution approving change order number 1, accept the reconstruct South T Hangar taxi line project as complete, and approve pay estimate number 4 as the final payment. Can I have a motion?
I'll move approval of Resolution 24-03, a resolution approving change order number 1 in the amount of a $1,277.28 decrease, accept the reconstruct South T Hangar taxi lane project as complete, and approve pay estimate number 4 in the amount of $12,309.21 as a final payment to Midwest Concrete, Inc. of Piasta, Iowa.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Are the pilots happy with it? Did it fix all the problems?
Any improvement out there that
appreciated.
repairs the
Sure.
quality of the pavement is much improved. I would point out, different contractor, but this contractor also
Also
had
had a late
a
problem.
liquidated damage because they were late. This one was only $500. They were just 1 day beyond. But again, they are accepting it, saying, yep, we have some responsibility here. And you'll see that also in the statement of completion by McClure Engineering as well. So I think that the pilots that have, or the hangar tenants, are very happy to have access back to their hangar facility and are very supportive of the improvements that have been made.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Any discussion? We're on Resolution 2403. Carla, would you call the vote?
Yes, sir. Kangas?
Yes.
Meyers?
Yes.
Rathe?
Yes.
Wolff?
Yes.
Birgen?
Yes.
Drenkow?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
That was unanimous. Thank you very much. Let's turn our attention to Resolution 2404, a resolution accepting the public infrastructure for the Waverly Shell Rock Northeast Elementary School, now called North Ridge Elementary School. May I have a motion?
I'll move approval of Resolution 24-04, a resolution accepting the public infrastructure for the WSR Northeast Elementary School, or North Ridge Elementary School.
Thank you, Dr. Rathe. Can I have a
Second.
second? Thank you, Professor. Any discussion? None? Are you ready to vote? Carla, please.
Meyers?
Yes.
Rathe?
Yes.
Wolff?
Yes.
Birgen?
Yes.
Drenkow?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Kangas?
Yes.
That was unanimous. Thank you. If you like 2404, you're going to really like Resolution 2405, a resolution accepting the public infrastructure for the Waverly Shellrock West Elementary School, now known as Prairie West Elementary School. May I have a motion?
I'll move approval of Resolution 24-05, a resolution accepting the public infrastructure for the WSR West Elementary School, Prairie West Elementary School.
Second.
Thank you. That was Jones and Rathe. Any discussion?
I just might want to point out to the 5 people who are watching this on YouTube that what we're doing with these 2 resolutions is the school basically builds the infrastructure and then deeds the infrastructure, that the roads and that, to the city. Correct me if I'm wrong. So those things are built by the builder and then deeded to the city. So now it's our responsibility to maintain them and use them and all of that. So that's all we're doing here, is accepting the ownership of that infrastructure.
Moments before it snows.
Yes.
So who gets to clear it, is what you're saying?
And so is it all finished, the infrastructure at this one?
Yeah.
Okay,
At the west side?
at the west one.
Mr. Cherry, would you come address us?
So on my statement of completion, there is a note on there that talks about 2 items. So this is for the West School site. It's not going to be housing students until this coming September.
Right.
So there was, they had to borrow some parts from the school zone traffic signal that's out there. But I believe they have, actually, it was just today, maybe? Last week that they got the replacement parts and got that up and going. Additionally, there was some seeding that was done late in the year, so it's not totally established, and so the silt fence and erosion control will be removed in the spring or early summer, and that's on them to remove that.
Thank you. Any other discussion? You appear ready to vote, Carla?
Rathe,
Yes.
Wolff,
Yes.
Birgen,
Yes.
Drenkow,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kangas,
Yes.
Meyers.
Yes.
That was unanimous. Thank you very much. Item 7, shall we cancel the January 15th, 2024 City Council regular meeting and reschedule it for January 22nd, 2024, and further reschedule the January 22nd, 2024 study session meeting for January 29th, 2024, due to the caucuses being held on January 15th, 2024. Can I have a motion?
I would move to approve the cancellation of the January 15th, 2024 City Council regular meeting and reschedule it for January 22nd, 2024, and further reschedule the January 22nd, 2024 study session meeting for January 29th, 2024, due to caucuses being held January 15th, 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Kangas.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Any discussion?
Thank you for doing this.
You appear ready to vote, and that's a voice vote. So, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? I hear none. Let's move on to item number 8. Review and discuss the city council policies and procedures. Mr. Drenkow, would you like to lead us through this discussion?
Sure, why not? So we're not taking,
Is this your?
well, some of this is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We're not taking a vote on this tonight. As you can see, there's no resolution included in here. We're just opening this up for some short, brief discussion, and come back later on and see what you want to approve, what you don't want to approve, and what other changes you might want to make. Every 2 years, when we have a new council, we have kind of established a policy of that council establishes its own rules and regulations. So with the new council now, some new members, taking a look at some of the issues that have come up under the old copies of the rules and regulations. You know me, I'm a stickler for that kind of thing, and I like to see everything in black and white. So that's what I've done, made a couple of proposals here that we can take a look at. I'll explain to you what my intention is with the proposal. You can wordsmith it, you can criticize it, whatever you'd like to do. We'll have a brief discussion on that and then move on. I think you probably have copies in front of you. The first one is actually, the mayor suggested this, is that there's really no reason to have a roll call at the beginning of a meeting. It's not required by state law or any other issue. So this would basically strike out the two places in our current rules and procedures where it talks about a roll call.
Can I comment on that?
Go right ahead.
Okay, I think the rationale for having that in, and I'm not sure if it's tracked anywhere else on attendance-wise, was there was some concern, public discussion a number of years ago with council in terms of regular attendance, or what was the amount of attendance per, kind of how much were people showing up for council? We had some instances where perhaps some council members were not necessarily showing up on a very regular basis. And so there was concern certainly from the public, but then I think that was why it was put in, was that we had a tracking of who was here.
Yes. However, I learned that Carla does in fact enter into the minutes who is present, so it's being recorded, just not announced publicly.
And I was thinking the same thing, actually, that there is some utility to actually answering a roll. It says that you are here and you're ready to participate in the meeting and vote. But then also, we have situations where, because of certain circumstances, people might come to the dais, to the meeting late. So then, if you're doing that, then technically, they somehow have to be acknowledged that they're there, and they now answer the roll too. And then you get into the issue of, well, should they really be reporting into the mayor when they come in, or should they be reporting to the city clerk? So then they are also on the roll. I thought that was getting really legalistic even for me. So, I could see it both ways. I mean, it is kind of traditional, but I guess it hasn't been traditional for that long, but it has been kind of traditional to have a roll. So,
And Carla does also note in the minutes when people arrive.
Right.
At the time they arrive, so. I know that because I have frequently come in, sometimes just after, due to conferences or other.
So that's that one. Moving on.
Might want to comment on that one, that was fine.
Yeah. No, I fully understand what you're saying. The next one is the council meeting agenda. We've talked about this the last several times, we've gone over the rules and regulations. And the concept behind this is, as you'll read in the rules, if a council member wants to have something added to the agenda for consideration by the council, they're supposed to contact the city administrator. I'm sorry, they're supposed to contact the mayor. If a city staff person, one of the leaders or whoever wants to have something added to the agenda, Bill, for example, or Garrett, they would contact the city administrator. If one of us would like to have something added to the agenda, we would contact the mayor. The mayor takes a look at it, makes a decision that, yes, I think this is something appropriate for the agenda, or this is not appropriate for the agenda. If the mayor determines it's not appropriate for the agenda, they're supposed to get back to the council person, say, I'm not going to put it on the agenda, and this is my reason for not doing so. Okay. So, for example, say I wanted to change the name of Waverly to Butterscotch Junction.
That's a terrible name.
The mayor might say, no, I do not want to put that on the agenda. And the idea is, if I think that there is a lot of popular support for changing the name of the town to Butterscotch Junction, and I can get other council members to agree with that, we can require that item get on the agenda without the mayor's consent. Prior to this, it was only one other person, so there'd be two council people. I think it's more appropriate to have three. It's probably not a big deal, but I think if there's ever an issue that is divisive, not like Butterscotch Junction, but a divisive issue before it actually gets to the council, we want to make sure that there's enough support from the other council members to actually bring it up, rather than just have one or two people. In this case, it would be two people, have it come to the council, we'd need to have at least 3 people who thought that was a good idea to overturn the mayor's decision not to add it to the agenda. In the 6 years that I've been on council, I don't think there has ever been an issue where the mayor said, no, I don't want that on the agenda. At least not publicly. Privately, perhaps. So this is probably, again, one of those legalistic things, but I think it would be good to be a little bit more restrictive on what we can put on the agenda, because if it's not on the agenda, then obviously we can't move forward with that item.
I suppose my concern with this is if a council member wants something on the agenda, how many people do they have to talk to, and is that person going to be at risk of violating kind of open meetings? I mean, like this idea that you can't have too many council people together talking about something unless it's actually at the meeting. If they need to get 2 other people on board, they're probably talking to most of the council, and at what point is this becoming a de facto meeting with us talking about this, trying to figure out, can we put it on the agenda?
That's a good
So I suppose
point.
that's my biggest concern, is the more people, the greater the boundaries to getting it on the agenda, the greater the risk of violating our kind of open meetings. I mean, we want to basically get just a few people to say, this is what we're talking about, so then we can talk about it in an open setting, rather than it being kind of hush-hush behind closed doors, people talking about, are we gonna put this on the agenda? So that's kind of my response to this, is I'm not sure I like the idea of making it harder to get things on the agenda. I mean, I would agree that one person's crazy idea probably isn't worth getting on the agenda, but if you can get 2 crazy people together, you know, then at least we can talk about it.
I notice you're looking at me as you're saying that.
Well, and again, I think that was the thought process for the 2 was just allowing one person to throw anything out there could lead us to all sorts of, not necessarily
Tomfoolery.
chaos, but a lot of commentary, a lot of excess that we don't need. But having the second at least puts us in a position where when we get to council action, you have to have a motion and a second in order to go to anything. And there have been times where we've had a motion but no second, and so things have died at the table because of a no second. And so that would be fine. So somebody could say, hey, I'll agree to allow you to put this on it, but I'm not gonna second it. You know, and so somebody could get a crazy idea on, but, you know, that's a matter of choice for each council member as far as that, so. And of course, a single idea is still at the discretion of the mayor, because the mayor can put whatever the mayor wants on the agenda. So if somebody's got a crazy enough idea and can convince the mayor.
So for
Do you like butterscotch?
clarification,
Oh, okay, there we go.
if I have a crazy idea and I need to talk to 5 different people before I get my other 2 crazies, but I'm talking to those people
Right, if you're
not
talking
all
to
at
them
the
one
same
at a time, you're still not violating open meetings, correct?
You could either
Okay.
talk to 2 of them at a time, and you are.
Yeah, you can talk to 2,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
Well, there is actually a provision in the open meeting law about chain discussions.
Yeah.
Where you talk to one person at a time, but you have the same discussion, exact same discussion with each person. So that would be a violation of the open meeting law, as I understand it. This might be one of those issues, so.
You talk to anybody.
It's a fine
about
line.
it if
Yeah.
It's a fine line. It's
The way,
It's a fine line, but that's kind of an important.
you're- Yeah.
the way it was explained to me recently at one of these workshops I went to, so if councilperson A goes to councilperson B and says, I'm gonna vote yes on this, how are you gonna vote? And B says, I'm gonna vote yes, then B goes to C and says, A's gonna vote yes, I'm gonna vote yes, how are you gonna vote? Now we have a walking meeting, and that's a
Gotcha.
violation. Do I got that right, Ron?
That sounds right, yeah.
Yep, thank you.
So is it a violation if you're trying to get Butterscotch Junction on the agenda, and you ask multiple people if they will support you, you make your case, and you go from one to another, is that a violation?
I think if you talk to people one at a time, it's not a violation, but if
And
you
you're not
talk to.
talking about an actual vote, I suppose, you're talking about getting
Right.
something on an agenda?
All you're just agreeing to put it on the agenda.
Yeah.
You're not saying how you're gonna vote.
I'm gonna vote on it.
And that's the key, I think.
Yeah.
But even if you go to 4 or 5 different people and they all say they're going to vote for it, but you're not going A to B to C, it still could be considered as a walking quorum, which could be a problem.
Yeah.
Your best bet is simply not to do it.
Yeah.
To do those kind of things, because
Yeah.
there have been instances where, I know there's been a county in Iowa, I won't name them, they're north and west. They were fined on perception of trying to do it. They didn't actually technically accomplish it, but they tried to accomplish it, and that alone was enough to have them fined. I know Warren County has had issues in the past where they were giving direction to their city administrator, they went and acted without actually going to the public, that was a fine. The fact you're gonna bring it to the table, I think, is the biggest key, but how you get it there, I think, is also, from a perception standpoint, something you'd wanna be careful of doing. So I agree with Brian, the more you actually contact people, which could be seen as trying to gather support for your issue to get to the table, you're not really having a public discussion, then you're having a one-on-one discussion with everybody around you to get that done. It's just, it's close enough, it might not be worth the effort.
And most
For
of the
butterscotch
issues, it
structure.
seems like, that have been taken to the mayor as issues have come up during some sort of discussion we've had here, where someone or a citizen raises an issue and someone says, you know, we'll help you get that on the agenda. And usually you can get two people who will say it's worth bringing it forward and discussing. You know, they're not guaranteeing they're gonna vote for it, but
Yeah, and
That seems to be how it
we can do
comes.
that in a regular meeting
Yeah,
too, where
right.
we're doing council comments and stuff, and, or we've had somebody bring something up and we could say,
and then it's out in
that
the
sounds
open.
interesting, I would support talking about that more. And the mayor's got the indication that there's at least a couple council members that are supporting it without having to actually have emails to say, because we're in public meeting already, to say that.
Well, the first step would be to contact the mayor. I mean,
Right.
that's
Right.
the first step. I mean, there was some, I think, misperception prior to this that two people had to be in favor of it before the mayor would put it on the agenda. And that's not correct. That's putting the cart before the horse. Yeah, I mean, this only comes into play if the mayor says, no,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna put this on the agenda. And there are enough council people that say, we want this on the agenda. So, put your brains together, no, don't put your brains together, put your brains individually to work on this without talking to anyone else, and see if you can come up with a better procedure, should it ever happen that we want to have something on the agenda that the mayor does not want to put on the agenda. There's some way to force an item on the agenda if it needs to be done. And I guess I'm enough of a cynic to think that at some point in the future, it certainly won't happen with Mayor Anderson, so I'm not going to have to worry about that. But at some point in the future, that issue might come up where the council would want to discuss a particular item and the mayor doesn't want to bring it up. So that's my whole concern. I'm just trying to look and see, make sure that if we have something in the future, that we can,
And I'd
have a
rather-
way of addressing it.
I'd rather just have two people then. You know, because I think why wouldn't you want to discuss it out in the open?
Yeah.
And if it's easier to just have two people do it, and it doesn't happen that often, but
That's never happened,
why not
as
make
far
it
as
more
I know.
accessible, and then you only have to find one other person to
I mean,
agree
you
to
only can
second
make
your
one
motion.
phone call.
Right,
I feel like maybe this was a worthwhile conversation to have, to kind of get us thinking about, is there a better way to do this? But I agree with Dr. Rathe, I feel like maybe we're better to leave this part of the status quo. Could I ask, did we skip?
They're out of order. It's 110A and then 110C.
oh,
So I've got 110C in front of me right now. I probably have them stapled together.
all right.
What's on
Computer.
the agenda? Mine is
Yeah, it's
backwards.
Okay, the next one, and we've talked about this before, just recently, so there's really no reason to do a full discussion on this right now, but, my feeling is that I do not like lame duck appointments. That when we have I do not like have a situation where a mayor who is no longer in office, or will no longer be in office, who is appointing people to various boards and commissions. Normally, that wouldn't be a problem, but here again, I'm cynic enough to know that occasionally there could be an issue with it. A mayor who puts his entire family on the Economic Development Commission, not realizing that it no longer exists or something like that. So I personally would feel much more comfortable with a policy that, and I think the easiest way to do this is simply with the agenda, that we will not have an agenda item approving mayoral appointments between an election and the first day of the next term. So that would take care of that. So here again, we've discussed that. I know that I'm probably in the minority on that situation, but I wanted to bring it up to the council. And the last thing also that I have at least is, you know, I've been somewhat concerned about the guest council program, that it doesn't have any guardrails. So I've tried to put this together to provide some guardrails. None of these are mandatory. They're all just simply guidelines of what we would want to see with a guest council person. So, for example, I would hope that as a guest council person, the person should have some connection to the city of Waverly. You know, not your brother-in-law who's in town from New Jersey for a visit. You know, there should be somebody that has some connection to the city. It should be somebody who is old enough to be able to understand the proceedings and be able to have some kind of participate in them. So maybe somebody who's not 5 years old might be an issue. And you can say, well, these things would never happen. Okay, I have been around long enough to know that these things do occasionally happen. And it's good to have some guidelines so we can say, hey, this is what we'd like to see as guest council people. I think these are fairly reasonable. They're not onerous. They're not even mandatory. They're simply guidelines. So that's why I have this here. This is just basically what we're doing now. Also indicating that, people can exchange assignments among themselves. Individuals don't have to be subject to the approval of the mayor or anyone else. They get to sit up here on the dais and participate in the discussions, but can't vote. They have to leave when we have a closed session. All of the things that we're doing right now, basically. Just, I feel more comfortable that we have things like this actually in black and white and in writing, since everything up to this point has just been done on this is how we've always done it basis, on a legacy basis. I don't like those kinds of things that aren't spelled out in black and white, so.
Yeah, I think it's helpful. I think it's a good idea. I think especially the part about, we ran into it, I know when I was running for election last time, that my opponent ended up the guest council person. And so that's awkward, because it's difficult, I think, and we have to monitor ourselves when we're running for election, is what's a comment on an item on the agenda and what's a campaign speech, right? And so I think everyone has to be mindful of that. So I think it's a nice outline, helpful outline.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
I also appreciate that they're guidelines. I mean, this is what you should do, but we can all imagine that there may be some time where that doesn't apply, perhaps, for whatever reason. So I appreciate that we're given guidelines, but they're not like have-tos.
Okay, you have this in front of you for review, and we'll bring this as an agenda item in the future.
Yeah, and I appreciate your work on this, Rod. I mean, when we first got on the council, we did a lot of work on the policies and procedures. And so, over the years, we've had to make fewer and fewer changes. It's held up pretty well, so I appreciate your work on it.
Again, I've been on long enough where I started with some procedures and then they went away and
Yeah.
we had some interest and then we brought them back. And I do appreciate Rod taking the time to go in and kind of do the fine-toothing wordsmithing of some of this, even if I don't necessarily agree with what his suggestions are always, but he does take the time to kind of bring us topics that we can then consider and put some more thought into.
So is this going to come back before us for a vote?
Yes, we have to.
Section by section?
We do have to approve the whole council
Right.
policies at some
Right.
point, and that's usually either the first meeting in January of a new term, or Rod's got some suggestions here, so I don't know if that's coming back on the 15th, or the 22nd as a,
I would assume the 22nd.
Yeah.
I think with the items in front of you, that certainly within a couple weeks, you can ascertain what you feel about it and move forward.
I suppose I would like to know, in the absence of the roll call, where the attendance is going to be listed in the minutes. So it should, I agree with Tim, I think it should be part of the record, but I want to make sure that kind of who is in attendance is listed on, even if we're not doing a roll call, it should definitely be included in the minutes who is in attendance.
Carla, would you speak to that?
Absolutely. So, as a practice, you probably noticed that the beginning of the minute shows who is in attendance and who is late, who is absent. It's usually like the first few lines. It's, well, I guess now it's under roll call, but
Right.
it would be under the meeting was at 7 o'clock in the council chambers, and these people were
Okay, present and
or
absent, and, okay,
That's how we used to do it.
okay.
And then also, if there's a no vote, then you list the people who vote
voted
no.
no, okay.
So then you know the people who vote yes were the ones that.
And
were
the
left.
and the same is true for anyone who abstains, I assume.
Yes.
Okay.
I always list abstain
Okay.
and who the names are, so it is listed.
How do you list people that come in after the meeting has begun?
It'll be just like it is now, only it'll be up above where it
Mm.
says where the meeting was held and who was in attendance and who wasn't. Now, I do also, I note it there, but I also try to note it in the body of, that way then everybody knows
Item
which
3.
item they came in on.
Yeah.
That's helpful.
You can typically see with the number of people voting, that some you go from like 6 people voting to 7 people voting, so.
Yeah.
But there's a notice to what time people show up.
I try to do that.
That was my concern with the roll call is, how do you, how do you record when someone comes into the meeting after the roll call has been taken? Because clearly they can participate in the meeting, but, there should be some way of recording when they were there. But that should be something that's fairly easy to do. Either way.
One small thing I would just throw out there is if something that a goal of yours is to try to get more online participation, I think the roll call is helpful for that. That is announced, that people that are watching are knowing who's present. Just
Well,
just a thought.
and to add on to that, if you're watching, it's a chance to figure out who is who. I mean, we're fortunate that we've got these name tags, so people can like see who is who by the name in front of us. But the roll call is a good chance to kind of put names to faces, so.
I might suggest too that if we continue with the roll call, that when someone comes into the meeting, after the roll call, that maybe the mayor can simply announce, Councilperson Drenkow has now joined the meeting.
Finally.
Finally. We are disappointed to see that Council Drenkow is now
It's
joined the
about
meeting.
time.
Okay, that was a healthy discussion. Are you ready to move on?
Yes,
Yes?
I am.
Thank you. Item 9, approval of the mayoral appointments. Can I have a motion, please?
I would move approval of the mayoral appointments as printed in the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Kangas. Can I have a second?
Second?
Thank you, Professor. Any discussion?
I would just like to say I appreciated having the additional documentation here that made me feel better informed.
I'd like to add my thanks to anyone who applied, volunteered really, to be on any of these boards or commissions. It's really great. A lot of the work of the city is not done in the council room, but done in these small groups of citizens who care about some topic and are taking good care of it. So we appreciate all those citizens. Any more discussion? You appear ready to vote. This is a voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The mayor's appointments passed unanimously. Item 10, approval of the mayor pro tem. Can I have a motion?
I'll move approval of the appointment of Tim Kangas as mayor pro tem.
Second.
All righty, thank you so much. That's on the table. Any discussion? Councilman Kangas is the senior-most member of the council, having served for 14 years, and knows a great deal about Robert's rules and is an all-around nice guy. Any other discussion? You appear ready to vote. This is a voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye. And opposed? That was unanimous. Thank you very much. Item 11 is approval of the council liaisons to the board and commissions. Can I have a motion?
I'll move approval of the council liaisons to the commissions as posted.
Thank you, Councilperson Meyers. Can I have a second? There it is. Thank you. Thank you to the council members for being so willing to serve, but also easy to work with to get everyone in a nice place. It's sort of council Jenga, but I think we got everyone on the council equally irritated, so.
Did you have the great big spreadsheet on the desk and
I
everything?
did in fact have a huge spreadsheet with colors and all of that.
Nice.
Yes.
Very nice.
Yes.
Very nice.
Any more discussion?
Let me just say I appreciate being appointed to the Economic Development Commission, which we just eliminated.
There's no correlation to that, I assure you.
One less
Purely
meeting to go to.
coincidental.
One less meeting to go to, you're exactly right.
Purely coincidental.
Any other discussion? You appear ready to vote. That's a voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That passed unanimously. You have received reports from boards and commissions. This time we have from Waverly Senior Center, the calendar for January 2024, which has already been amended. They are not meeting sometime during the snow, and they are going to meet later.
506 Cafe.
506 Cafe.
506
It's got
Cafe.
postponed till the 23rd.
Yep. And the Waverly Municipal Airport Commission minutes have been presented to you from November 9. We're not going to vote on those, so staff updates, James.
Yes, sir. I think we have a few tonight.
Couple updates tonight. We're currently not accepting Star Homes or Recycling Center where we haul down and sear balls and the machine is broke down. So no estimated time when that's going to be completed, the repairs on that. Tree pickup is through Wednesday. We understand there's weather coming, so if you have some late deliveries out to the curb, please give us a call and we can come get them later this week. Garbage and recycling routes are planned as normal, right, as of right now. If there's any changes, we'll communicate them as we normally do versus on Facebook or the radio or city website. We've had numerous calls today on that, wondering with the storm. And with the snow event, excuse me, heavy wet snow. It's going to take us a while to plow it. It's going to be a long duration event. Keep in mind that it will take a little bit longer. We will keep the emergency routes, snow emergency routes open and plowed fully. Residential routes will get opened up. But keep in mind, again, we'll have to hit them numerous times. So, if you plow out your driveways, that's fine, but realize that we're going to be coming back again.
Garrett?
Well, contrary to Rod's comment earlier about 5 people watching on YouTube, there were 9. Hopefully some people were watching live on TV now too, because after a very long hiatus, it is back, first time tonight.
Huzzah.
So
Oh, that's exciting.
I've been getting updates as we've been going, and things seem to be going okay. So
We should have had a fight or something to
We got
live
our
up
ratings.
so we're back on
ratings.
TV as well.
Oh, that's good. What channel is it on? How do you find it on Waverly, on like Waverly Utilities?
Should
Cable?
be 80 something. I'll have to check on that for you for sure.
I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember either, it's been so long.
79.2
What's that?
79.2 on Mediacom.
Oh,
79.2 on Mediacom. Then we got new signs up at Cedar River Park, the baseball and softball complex. So be sure to swing by there and see those. There are donor signs, our larger donor signs that were placed for each field. So be sure to stop out and take a look at that. And then we also have signs on the press boxes as well. And if the forecast is anything, that it's saying, I'm guessing the sledding hill will be open later this week. So looking forward to that as well. That's all I got for you tonight.
That's all we have. Thank you. No school tomorrow. That's all we have tonight, sir.
All right, thank you. Let's go to city council comments. I think we'll go this way. So, Councilperson Wolff.
I've been quiet tonight, but thank you everyone for great discussion, and I want to go ahead and thank the snow removal folks for all the work that they're going to be doing in the next couple days.
Thank you. Yeah. Dr. Rathe?
Move your cars from the snow routes so they can plow. Nothing else from me.
Councilperson Drenkow?
Yes, I've got a question for Justin, if he can answer it. I've had a number of people who ask me what's going on over there in the street by Four Queens. Is that something you can disclose?
That's in regards to the CenturyLink relocation across the river for the Three Avenue Bridge project.
Okay.
So they poured back the concrete last week. They're just covered. It'll probably stay covered until the snow is gone, I guess.
All right. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Kangas?
Just kind of a reminder, we did move meetings tonight, so for next week, so I believe the Democrats are meeting, is it just at Denver, is that?
I believe it's in Denver.
The
yeah.
Denver Civic Center. There, the Republicans in Waverly are meeting at Rathe Auditorium at the high school.
Thank you. Councilperson Meyers?
Nothing for me tonight.
Councilperson Jones?
Just happy to be here.
Councilperson Birgen?
I would like to welcome the Wartburg students back to Waverly. First day of classes of the winter semester was today. So it's always nice to have more people in town, in the restaurants, in the stores, so it's good for that. I also wanted to remind people, so frequently, after city council meetings, I invite people to join me for a beer to sit around and discuss city council politics. This is something that I started about 4 years ago when it seemed like there was some concern about communication. So I kind of wanted to create this kind of relaxed atmosphere for people to come chat, just informal. I'm not doing it tonight. I don't do it when we have an executive session because I don't know how long that executive session is going to be. If it's going to be 5 minutes or 50 minutes, I don't want people waiting in the bar for me. But I just want to encourage people that if you want to talk to someone, I think all of the council people here welcome input. We really encourage communication. This is one thing I do to encourage communication, but I think across the board, any of us welcome communication. So that's kind of just reminding people that we are servants. We're here to serve the general populace. It's not just our ideas. We want to make sure we're doing a good job. So when you have questions, have comments, please reach out to us. You know, going to the bar is one way to do it, but I know not everyone likes to go to the bar. So whatever works for you, please reach out to us.
Thank you. Guest councilperson, do you have any comments?
Nothing additional from me. I would commend Councilman Birgen for those invitations, and I would say that all of the council members have been very welcoming of me, and I would be very confident they would be very welcoming of anyone else as well.
Thank you. I have a few comments. We need to publicly acknowledge the pain that's being suffered by our neighbors in Perry. That's an unspeakable tragedy. There are at least two things that we can do, citizens of Waverly, and I call upon you to do them. The first is to know that if you're in a mental health crisis, if you feel like you might hurt yourself or someone else, or you know someone who's in a crisis, you can pick up any phone and dial 988 or text to 988 for immediate, confidential, competent assistance. The second thing that we can do is secure our weapons, especially if you have teenagers at home. There's a suicide epidemic in our country, especially among young people. All I'm asking, think about securing your weapon. We'll talk about that again later. Dr. Rathe, I'm going to call on you if you don't mind. Do you have more to say about access to mental health in a crisis?
Yeah, sure. So the mayor is correct. The easiest way to get help is to dial or text 988. We also have an organization called Foundation 2 that serves Bremer County and serves our region, and they have a mobile crisis team so that if you or anyone in your family or a friend needs to talk to someone, you can call the Foundation 2 number or text it, and that's 1-855-581-8111. They will also send a crisis team to you wherever you are at, and I have had them come to my office to meet with people. We've sent them to people's homes to meet with people, and that's for all ages. That's for kids and adults. And Foundation 2 is a very reliable organization, and they man the crisis line, plus they do the crisis team. And I totally agree with the comments about securing weapons. Anybody that you've got in your household who you think is struggling, or if they are a child or a teenager, please lock up your weapons or secure them, because I can't tell you, I've had that happen before to patients, whether they've got a clinical diagnosis of something or not. I've had people use a gun to kill themselves or nearly do so. And so it's very important. It's a public health crisis in this country. There's approximately 46,000 people who kill themselves every year in America. That's twice as many as get murdered. We hear more about the murders, but 46,000 people is a lot of people. So there is help out there. If you don't feel comfortable talking to a stranger, you can bring yourself to the emergency room at Waverly Health Center. You could talk to your primary care provider. For sure, if you've already got a counselor or a psychiatrist or any sort of mental health person, they want to hear from you, regardless of what time it is, day or night, if you're in crisis. I'd much rather hear from a patient than from the coroner. So we always encourage people to call.
Thank you, Dr. Rathe.
Yep.
The City Council will now, I propose, move into executive session to discuss collective bargaining strategy for the impending City Unit and Waverly Police Protective Association negotiations. This is provided for us by Section 20.17.3 of the Code of Iowa. May I have a motion to enter into executive session?
I'll move to enter into executive session.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
And this is a roll call vote, please. Carla?
Yes. Birgen.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
Drenkow.
Yes.
Rathe.
Yes.
Wolff.
Yes.
That was unanimous. The Waverly City Council now moves into executive session.